Hey, good morning, everybody. Bishop-elect here, and I'm coming live at this particular point in time. And so I want to wish everybody a good morning, a wonderful day. I pray that your day is off to a wonderful start. And I do not have my birthday list at this particular point in time, so I can't give you the specific birthday shout outs as I typically would. And so just catch me on the next go around. I guarantee you that I'll be able to call your name out. But just know this, if today is your birthday, I pray that your day is filled with many blessings, gifts, and love from all around, and that you enjoy as many of the sweet things as you desire. Just don't make yourself sick. All right. And so if this is your first time watching one of these broadcasts, I want you to know that they are to encourage you, to empower you, to educate you, to motivate you, to inspire you, and to uplift you to move towards your destiny, operating in the purpose for which you've been created, using the gifts that are within you. And so I am live. We've been talking all this week. I'm not going to be on here very long, but we've been talking all of this week in regards to thorns. And before I get into that, I want to say thank you so very much for all of you who follow and who share and who like, who comment on the page and on these videos. I hope that the teaching and sharing has been a blessing and encouragement to your spirit as you have been watching these video broadcasts. And so I want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate the red and blue dots. It means a great deal to me. If you do not already like and follow the public ministry page, do so right now. Go over to Lamont Walker Ministries and like the page, because that's typically where I go live and I share many words of encouragement, words of wisdom. That's where I try to educate and empower and encourage from that page. I very rarely do it from my personal page, but I did it this week because I felt like I needed to have a greater reach with what I was sharing in regards to this particular topic and subject on thorns. And so go ahead and do that now if you haven't. And so let me get right to it. I'm not going to be on it very long. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but we have been talking all this week in regards to thorns. And uh, today's shouting point, it's a Fresh Fire Friday praise break time for us. And this is one of the most shouting points anyway, if you will, for me. We've been dealing with people that have thorns, individuals that have thorns. And one of the things that I was thinking about and sharing, reflecting on, is that typically people who are insecure are usually the ones who identify and call out and speak the loudest in regards to thorns in another. I'll say that again. People who are insecure in themselves, people who have low self-esteem, people who are not quite sure, quite confident in their own abilities and what they possess and what they're able to do, those who are usually very easily intimidated will oftentimes try to identify and call out the thorns of another. They will speak vocally and boldly, very loudly about the thorns of another because they are insecure in themselves. And so they typically do that, again, so that their thorn or their weakness, their flaw, their imperfection is not identified. But here's the thing: for anybody that has a thorn, and this is the shouting point, and I've shared this yesterday, that typically the thorn that you may see in another person, it very well could be that that's the thorn that's within you. So that's one of the reasons why you don't speak out very loud or very much in regards to a thorn or flaw or imperfection that you may see in another, because it's a good possibility that that may be the thorn that's actually within you. Now, if you have a thorn, this isn't a moment of being depressed. This isn't a moment of suppression or oppression. But one of the things that we also learn is that if you have a thorn, that it qualifies you. And this is what I want to talk about today and be the shouting point. The Apostle Paul said that he was talking to the church in Corinth. He said, I have this thorn in my flesh. And you know what? I realize and recognize that I have this thorn. And people with thorns, imperfections, with flaws, they know that they have them, and they actually know what they are. They just try to cover them up. But here's the thing that I learned, that when it comes to being in relationship with God, you don't have to worry about covering it up, because he will cover it for you. Why? Because he said, I prayed to God 3 times that he would take this thorn away from me. Get this thing out of me. I don't want to live with it. I'm tired of it. I've been living with it for all of my life. I don't know why I even have this thorn. Actually, I do know why I have it. It's because of the goods that you've given to me, and you gave it to me so that I will be humble and not arrogant in my approach and my dealings with people. And so typically when you come across a person who's very arrogant, it's because of the fact that they've forgotten that they have a flaw. It's because they've forgotten that they have a thorn. When you deal with people who are haughty and who are puffed up, again, it's because they have forgotten that they have a flaw, that they have a thorn or a weakness within them. And so they don't want to cause any light to be shed upon it. But we want to shed light on it today. Listen, if you got a flaw, own that bad boy. Possess it and do not be afraid of it. Do not fear it, because listen, it qualifies you. And so he went on to say, God, he prayed to the Lord 3 different times. I don't know if they were back to back or if they were on 3 different occasions, if it was 3 days in a week, if it was one time 1 month, one time another month, or within 3 year span. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, he said that I realized that there's something that's wrong with me, and I do not have, watch this, y'all, I don't have the ability to fix it. I don't have the ability to correct it. All I know is that it's within me, and I'm turning to you, the greatest power that I know. If anybody can fix it, you can. And so, what he said, that he prayed to the Lord about this thorn, and the Lord came back to him and said, listen, don't trip on that thorn. Don't worry about the thorn, because watch this, my grace is sufficient for you. And so, listen, he said, and I'm just like, it's an absolutely shining point, because he said, my grace is sufficient for you. I know you got this thorn. I called you with the thorn. I've anointed you with the thorn, and I'm giving you grace for the thorn. My grace, it is sufficient for you. And so then he goes on, and here's the shouting part, y'all. Here's the shouting part. Just the grace of God. If that don't get you, this next part ought to have everybody that's got a thorn. This part ought to make you jump up. It ought to make you lift your hands. It ought to make you shout. He said that I thank God that I have the thorn, because he says, I boast in my infirmities and I boast in my thorn, because it enables the power of God to rest upon me. And so this is what I'm saying. Hey, Pastor Portley, it's good to see you, man. He says that if you have a thorn, it qualifies you to have the power of God rest upon you. And so therefore, I'm telling you, I learned this a long time ago. So I stopped being sad and I stopped being depressed, because, people wanted to identify and call out thorns and weaknesses that were within me. Once I learned that it is the thorn that qualifies me to have power, I thank God for the thorn. And not only do I have power, but I also have the grace of God. And that is something that a lot of people who are inside of the church and outside of the church choose to withhold from individuals who have a thorn. Fact of the matter is, listen, you got a thorn just like I do, and you need the same grace just as I do. And thank God that he gives us grace for our thorns, because listen, had we not had the grace of God and we be up here trying to sing to people, trying to teach to people, trying to prophesy and trying to evangelize to people and try to lead people, wouldn't nobody be following us, because we wouldn't have the grace of God upon us. And thank God for the grace, because oftentimes it is the grace of God that shields your thorn. So that's why I said, whatever you uncover to God and before God, he will cover up. So you don't have to worry about hiding anything from the Lord. You don't have to worry about hiding your weakness, your flaw from God. He already knew you would have it. He created you. He designed you. And listen, thank God for the thorn, because it qualifies you to have the power of God resting upon you. Hey, Skylar. Hey, Michelle. Good to see y'all. And so I thank God for my thorn. And nobody, listen, when you own and when you possess your thorn, and when you thank God for your weakness and for your flaw, for your imperfection, when you realize and know that you haven't, there's nothing that anybody else can do. Nobody else can shame you. Nobody else can blame you. Nobody else can condemn you. Nobody else can convict you or pronounce you guilty, because that's what condemn means. It means to pronounce guilty, but oftentimes that's a pronunciation that is made after weighing all of the evidence and information. But most oftentimes, like I said, people that's trying to condemn you and trying to pronounce you guilty, they're missing evidence. They don't have all of the information. So a lot of times when people are calling out your weakness or your flaw or your imperfection, they're not doing nothing but bumping their gums to try to shield the fact that they have a flaw and that they have a weakness. But thank God today, thank God for your thorn. Thank God for your weakness. Thank God for your imperfection, because it is what qualifies you to have power. And I don't know about you, I know that I have power with God, because when I look around and I see all of the lives that are being affected and being impacted by me being alive and by what he's anointed me to say and what he's anointed me to do in the earth realm, all of the lives that are being saved, the lives that are being healed, the souls that are being drawn and won to Christ for the glory of God, I thank God for my thorn. I don't care. Like I said before, I don't care what nobody else got to say about me. You can call me what you want to call me. You can talk about me like a dirty dog. You can try to shame me, try to blame me, try to defame my character, try to defame my integrity. But one thing that you will not do is you will never ever be able to possess my thorn. Why? Because it's in my hand. I'm controlling my thorn. I've got my thorn under the grace of God. And it is only because of the power of God that comes along with having the thorn. And so that's what I want to encourage you with today. Listen, don't let nobody make you feel bad because you got a weakness, you got a flaw. Yeah, you got it. But here's the thing. Don't magnify it. You don't have to magnify it, and don't let nobody else try to magnify your thorn either. And when you are around people that's trying to identify and call it other people's thorn and try to make somebody else's thorn seem worse than another, you tell them, hey, pump your brakes and let's hold up and let's put this light on you. Let's talk about your thorn. What is the flaw and what is the weakness? What is the imperfection in you before you ever try to sit in judgment on somebody else, before you ever try to condemn anybody else for having a flaw or having a weakness, let's talk about yours first. Because if you start to talk about theirs, then they won't be able to talk about nobody else's. Because it's gonna humble them. Like I said, and I'll share this with y'all, and I'm going. I had an issue because there was somebody that kept doing this certain thing, and every time they did it, it made me so upset. It pissed me off, and I wasn't even praying to God about it. I just recognized it, and so I opened up the Word, and that's when I turned to St. Matthew 7, and the Word said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." And He said, "How you gonna sit there and judge somebody else for having a mote in their eye when you got a whole beam in yours?" And so when I sat there and I looked at that, and then He revelated that word. And He said, the reason why you have a problem with it in that person is because it's what's in you. And so you really don't have a problem with that person, but the problem is within yourself. You got a problem with Lamont. You don't have a problem with nobody else. The problem is with you. And most oftentimes, that's how a lot of us humans are. We want to say this person is wrong and this person got a problem, and look at what this person keeps doing. But the reason why it's an adjutant or an irritant in you is because it's the very same thing that's alive in you. I'll let that be a Selah moment. So before you judge somebody else, sit down on yourself like I did. I took that Bible and I threw it. I literally threw that Bible across the room, and I sat in silence because God had to fix me, and He had to correct me, and He had to humble me. That's why you got the thorn. The thorn is it is the humility inducer. It is to remind you of the fact that, hey, you jacked up just like every other human on this planet. So before you ever try to cast doubt, and before you try to cast shade on somebody else and try to make somebody else feel bad because of a flaw or a weakness or an imperfection in them, you sit down and you judge yourself. You sit down and you look at yourself and you look at the many flaws and imperfections that you have. So don't try to put nobody else down, and don't try to make nobody else feel bad. And don't you be backbiting and talking about somebody else behind their back with your critical fault finding self. Let me talk to you. That's who I'm talking to. Those of you that are watching and listening right now. But if you got a thorn, lift up your hands and celebrate and shout. Listen, I say this, our Fresh Fire Friday praise break. Thank God for the thorn. God, I thank you for I thank you for my weakness. I thank you for my imperfection. I thank you for my flaw, for the flaws that's within me, because it makes me and qualifies me to have the power of God resting upon my life. And listen, that's the greatest power that you can ever have on the face of this planet. If you ain't got no power with God, you ain't got no power at all. Listen, because you can even try to usurp it and try to get it from the kingdom of darkness. But listen, the kingdom of light will always overpower and overshadow the kingdom of darkness any given day. And so I love y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's our Fish Fry Friday praise break. Know this, that what you've seen God do before in your life, He did it again. So when somebody tried to listen, they tried to put you down, He lifted you up again. I'm excited about it. When somebody tried to put you out, He brought you back in again. He did it. Listen, He brought us to another Friday. This is a Friday that we've never seen before. It's a Friday that we'll never see again, all because of the grace of God. Thank God for the grace and the mercy of God. It is by the grace of God that you were here, that I am here, and that we are alive today because of the grace of God. And what does that mean? That means that He loved you and He loved me enough to wake us up again and give us another opportunity to get it right, to live right, to forgive, to show love, to show grace, to show compassion, to have mercy upon the individuals that need to have mercy shown upon them. So do it today. Hey, get up out of that judgment and get up out of that seat of being the judge and being the executioner, and listen, sit on the mercy seat like all of us got to do, and give God glory, give God praise. Focus on yourself. Thank God for your thorn. Lift Him up and magnify Him, glorify Him. Why? Because He's worthy of it. Listen, He created you with your thorny self, and know what? He loves you with your thorny self. He loves you so very much that He created you with that thorn. He wanted you to have it. So listen, love today. Give it away. You receive love and grace freely. Give it away freely. I love you. I pray that you've been encouraged, you've been empowered, you've been educated, motivated, inspired, and uplifted to move towards your destiny, operating in the purpose for which you've been created, using the gifts that are within you. Hey, I'm signing off by saying, hello, 2019. I'm still going up, and so are you. He did it again for you. He did it for me. What's coming for you and for me with our thorny selves is better than what's been. Mad love.